When we consider heroes, we imagine courage, selflessness, and integrity. But what occurs when those symbols of heroism are on the opposite side of the law? It is a sudden change from the pedestal to the courtroom. So who's the defender and who is the wrongdoer? Here are 4 surprising instances where actual heroes were the ones being accused. Starting with Joseph Graces, a firefighter praised for saving many lives, but later facing arrest for a crime that shocked the community. On an otherwise typical day in 2020, retired firefighter Joseph Garris found himself in a situation that would deeply affect him both physically and emotionally. As he drove his Jeep through Santa Paula, California, Garris noticed something alarming that compelled him to act immediately. Garris spotted a man, later identified as Samir Salgado, lying in a parking lot covered in blood. Without a second thought, Garris pulled over, rushed to Salgado's side, and began doing CPR, acting instinctively as any trained first responder would in such a critical moment. As Garris tirelessly worked to save Salgado's life, officers from the Santa Paula Police Department arrived at the scene. However, instead of offering assistance or taking over the life-saving efforts, the officers seemed more concerned with Garris himself.
Don't go to the car. Don't go to that car. Stay over here. Stay over here. Stay over here. Come over here. That's your car?
That's my car. I was driving by. I saw it. I'm a retired firefighter.
Okay.
I'm not a part of this.
We don't know anything about that. We see a gun in the car. You're not going there. Do you have your ID?
It's in the car.
What's your name?
Joe Garces.
Their focus quickly shifted from the injured man on the ground to Garris's Jeep parked nearby. The officers appeared suspicious, as though they were more interested in determining whether the vehicle belonged to Garris than in helping the man who was fighting for his life. An officer then stated, "We see a gun in the car, you are not going there," only adding to the confusion and stress of the situation. Garris, now caught between trying to save a life and defending himself, attempted to clarify the situation, explaining that he had discovered the gun in Salgado's waistband, rendered it safe, and placed it in his car to keep it away from the victim.
That's his knife. I took it out of his pocket to cut his shirt off.
And that's your vehicle?
Yeah, I was driving north. I saw the lady. They were looking this way, and I saw him down, and I thought it was beer or something. Spun around and came in, saw the blood. She said they were calling 911. I screamed, "Has he been shot?" She said, "Yeah, it was." I was pulling in.
Okay.
Saw the gunshot wound to the side of his face. I did a quick check. Found the gun in his waistband, rendered it useless, stuck it inside my car, grabbed his knife, cut off his shirt, and then you guys started showing up.
Okay. Did you see anybody running, anybody leaving the area, anything?
Despite Garris's attempts to explain his actions, the officers remained on edge, seemingly more preoccupied with the presence of a gun than with Garris's efforts to help. The suspicion and mistrust in the air were evident, as Garris tried to convey his intentions clearly, hoping that the officers would understand that he was simply a good Samaritan trying to do the right thing.
Get this guy out of here. Sir.
He's a witness.
What the?
Relax, okay?
We appreciate it.
Huh?
So I got a crime scene, sir. I'm a detective.
Yeah, and I'm here helping him, so step the off. Okay? If you're a good detective, you wouldn't be yelling at me right now. You'd be taking care of your job.
Over here.
Yeah, you. I can't get the out of here.
Get out of my crime scene. Get out of my crime scene.
What are you going to do to me?
Get out of my crime scene. I'm going to make you next time. Get out of my crime scene.
Come with me, Mr. Garces. Mr. Garces.
That's my
Come with me, Mr. Garces.
No wonder people don't give you guys the benefit of the doubt. And I worked with you for 27 years. When do I get my car back then? Hey, thank you for teaching me not to be helpful, you fat piece.
You have to stay back. Step back.
Officers
Step back. Step
arrived
back.
on the
Step back.
scene
Step back.
like
I
a
don't know who you
tornado
are.
ready
So
to
now you're gonna come over with me, huh? You're doing a really good job right now, aren't you?
I need you to back up.
You need to calm him the
I need you to back up. Come here.
No,
I got it. Come here.
No, you need to understand.
The situation seemed to be calming down slightly as Garris gave his witness testimony. However, any hope of resolution was quickly dashed when Detective Rivera arrived at the scene. Rivera immediately adopted an aggressive and condescending attitude toward Garris, barking orders and showing no interest in the fact that Garris had just attempted to save a man's life. Rivera brusquely ordered, "Get this guy out of here." Garris, feeling frustrated by the detective's actions, responded by saying, "A good detective wouldn't be yelling at me at this moment." you would be attending to your employment. Rivera's animosity towards Garris increased, leading him to insult Garris further and eventually warn him of being arrested if he didn't depart from the location.
Job? Take him. Turn around. Where's your badge at?
In my Jeep, like I keep saying, but you
Where
won't
at in your
listen.
Jeep? Where at in your Jeep?
Hey, you go see it when you look
Do
at
you
the
want
front of
your
Jeep.
car? Do you want me to have to write a search warrant and keep it, or do you want to keep your car? Do you want to get home as soon as possible?
I'm not talking anymore.
Okay. Sink him in this car right here.
64. What's your first name?
Joe. Hey, check that out. I stopped to help somebody who's been shot. I'm getting arrested.
Garces was detained in the back of the police car for nearly 15 minutes before the detective finally released him.
At this stage, the situation had reached a point of no turning back. Garris, who had initially paused to assist a person in need, was now caught and put in the rear of a police vehicle. He was kept there for almost 15 minutes, even though he tried to protest and clarify his situation. His voice carried clear signs of frustration and disbelief as he came to the realization that his brave deeds resulted in being treated unfairly as if he were a criminal. The situation involving Rivera caused Garris to sustain serious injuries, a dislocated shoulder and a torn labrum, which ultimately needed surgery. Garris's journey didn't stop after he was let go by the police. Even though he was eventually released, the harm had already been inflicted, both bodily and mentally. After dedicating 27 years to serving as a firefighter in his community, Garris wondered if he would ever assist anyone again. The incident had damaged his belief in the system he had previously felt proud to belong to, causing him to approach future interactions with caution and uncertainty. Following the incident, Garris took legal action against Detective Rivera and the city of Santa Paula. Garris eventually reached a settlement outside of court, where he received monetary compensation for both his injuries and the ordeal he went through. Still, no sum of money could completely mend the emotional wounds caused by the ordeal. While thinking about what happened that day, Garris couldn't get rid of the strong feeling of betrayal he experienced, not only from one officer, but from the whole system that didn't support him in his time of need. This incident of Garris shows that well-meaning deeds can lead to unforeseen and distressing outcomes. In a world where doing what's right doesn't always bring the right results, it is important to remember that good deeds can still have consequences. Because the next case will make you think how people can differentiate between right and wrong. On February 4th, 2014, a remarkable and surprising event took place on a California freeway that gained widespread national interest. Around 8:53 p.m., Chula Vista firefighter Jacob Gregoire was involved in a tense confrontation with the California Highway Patrol. What began as a normal emergency situation quickly turned into an event that made people wonder about the public safety officials' priorities. Jacob Gregoire and his Chula Vista firefighting colleagues arrived at a rollover car crash on the highway. According to the usual procedure, they positioned their fire trucks in a way that blocked the road, establishing a secure area for both themselves and the victims as they offered medical assistance. Emergency responders commonly follow this practice to avoid additional accidents and guarantee the safety of all parties, including victims, rescuers, and drivers passing by. But things changed unexpectedly when a CHP officer showed up and instructed the firefighters to relocate their trucks. The officer cautioned that failure to comply would result in arrest. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Jacob declined to relocate the trucks. He insisted that his main duty was to the injured people from the accident, who required immediate medical attention. Allowing them to relocate the trucks would have endangered their lives even more.
Okay, I don't have time for a cell phone. This is ridiculous. CHP is arresting Engineer Gregoire for where he spotted the fire engine.
It's unbelievable you have to do this.
It's unbelievable. You guys have to treat us like this. We're on the road trying to help you guys.
We asked you to clear the road and you said no, and you'll get arrested for moving it.
We're in the middle of patient care with patients on the freeway. They're putting him in handcuffs at this time and walking him away.
The tension increased when the officer actually carried out his warning. In a surprising and unbelievable turn of events, Jacob Gregoire was arrested by the CHP officer for not moving the fire truck. This choice, done during a live emergency situation, shocked Jacob's coworkers and spectators, and understandably. While Jacob was being handcuffed and taken away, the firefighters showed their frustration and disbelief about the situation. They couldn't understand why a fellow officer of public safety would detain someone. What was his wrongdoing? Just making an effort to save lives. Jacob's arrest did not escape attention. The Chula Vista Fire Department's leader promptly defended Jacob, publicly backing his choice to prioritize the victim's life instead of the officer's commands. The chief emphasized that the victim's safety was the top priority, and Jacob had fulfilled his duties as a firefighter. The arrest, viewed as excessive by many in the firefighting community and the public, caused anger. Luckily, Jacob Gregoire was freed from detention only half an hour later. Even after being arrested, Jacob received widespread acclaim for his courage and commitment to his work. Jacob showed the true essence of a first responder by prioritizing the victim's life, even if it meant jeopardizing his own freedom. But in the next case is when things get blurry. On June 27, 2023, what began as a peaceful evening out for Army veteran Matt Solon and Michael Loudermilk, the son of a Georgia congressman, quickly spiraled into a life-altering ordeal. Around 4:57 p.m., Solon and Loudermilk were with their girlfriends in a parking lot when they were suddenly confronted by a gunman, later identified as Dwight Cooper. The encounter would not only test Solon's military training, but would also lead to a controversial legal battle that left him questioning the justice system. As Solon and Loudermilk enjoyed their evening, Cooper approached the group, seemingly intoxicated. Cooper asked for a cigarette, but when Solon and his friends told him they didn't have one, the situation took a dangerous turn. Without warning, Cooper pulled out a gun, attempting to threaten the group. Solon, relying on his military training from his 6 years of service, swiftly disarmed Cooper and forced him to the ground, ensuring the safety of everyone present.
Someone pulled a gun on me.
This guy asked for a cigarette. We told him he doesn't have a cigarette. He's drunk, and he pulled a gun out on us. I disarmed him.
Who has the gun?
I have the gun. It's disarmed. It has hollow points in it. It's a Glock.
I want you to stand there, and I want you to put that gun on the ground, okay? Do not have it in your hand when they pull up.
After calming Cooper down, Solon immediately called 911 to report the incident. Solon told the dispatcher that someone had pointed a gun at him. The man asked for a cigarette. We told him we didn't have any. He was drunk, and he showed us a gun. I removed his firearm. Solon's tone was tense as he disclosed that he had taken away a Glock gun loaded with hollow point bullets from Cooper.
It's here and point to the ground, but keep your hands to where they can see them.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Where did that come from?
It came from him bleeding from the head.
The guy bleeding from the head?
Yes, sir.
I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. Okay, do you think people ever lie to the police? Is it possible?
I could have got shot today.
Yep, me too. That's my job.
I was in the military for 6 years. I think I know
Congratulations,
that.
sir.
I was in Afghanistan. I know exactly what danger is.
Solon complied with the dispatcher's directions, placing the gun on the ground and patiently awaited the arrival of the police. While filled with adrenaline, Solon stayed composed, ensuring his hands were visible as directed, while also attempting to handle the situation with Cooper's head wound from the altercation. As the minutes ticked by and the police arrived and started questioning him, Solon reflected on the gravity of the situation, acknowledging the dangers he had faced. "Is it possible I could have gotten shot today?" he remarked to the police officer. "Yep, me too." And Solon tells the police that he knows what he was doing. "That's my job. I was in Afghanistan. I know exactly what to do."
Don't go reaching in your pocket, man. You just
Get away to get thrown on the ground. Don't be stupid. I understand completely. You're not exactly being cooperative either.
I'm putting him in my car.
Sir, did I do something wrong?
I don't know what's going on. We're trying to detain you to figure out what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but did I do something wrong? Did I do something wrong or no?
Look at it this way, man.
I'm done talking.
Anytime we
Even though Solon tried to clarify the situation, the officers prioritized securing the scene and ensuring their safety over fully comprehending the context. They instructed Solon to stay put and not touch his pockets, despite already disarming Cooper and having the situation under control. "I had him on the ground, taking care of the situation," Solon explained, frustrated by the officer's approach. But his attempts to clarify the situation only seemed to heighten the tension. The police were wary, detaining Solon while they assessed the scenario, despite his insistence that he had acted in self-defense.
Safely ask everybody questions. We got one guy with a gun, one guy bleeding, so we detain and we wait till everything calms down. Then we start asking questions and kind of figure out what happens in the scenario, just so you know why you're sitting back here.
No, I have no idea why I'm sitting back here. It doesn't explain anything.
Matt, step on now.
Yes, sir.
I had
it under control, I feel like.
You had what under control?
The whole situation. I had him on the ground. I had him taken care of inside the ambulance. I had it disarmed. And what else did you guys do?
All I'm told is that you're the last one to have the gun. You started touching your pockets and everything. I asked you not to, and you're like, hey, I'm the hero, or whatever you were saying.
Okay, sorry.
So,
as the police continued their investigation, it became clear that they viewed Solon's actions with suspicion. We got one guy with a gun, one guy bleeding, so we detain and wait till everything calms down, one officer explained to Solon, who is now sitting in the back of a police car, bewildered and confused by the turn of events. Despite his protests, Solon was arrested and charged with felony possession of a firearm. The police, seemingly focused on the fact that Solon had the gun last, appeared to disregard his role in disarming the threat. "Did I do something wrong?" Solon repeatedly asked, only to be met with vague explanations about standard procedures. Following his arrest, Solon spent approximately 35 hours in jail, grappling with the shock and disbelief that he, the person who had disarmed the gunman, was the one behind bars.
In your view, is Matt Solon a hero?
During his initial response, that yes, I agree with that comment. I think when the second act was taken, that's where the lines crossed, where he protected himself and the people he was with, and I commend him for that. Then part two is where he took action beyond that, and that's where he did cross the line.
Did that appear to be punitive rather than defensive?
Yes, that's what I saw.
I asked over and over and over again, what am I being arrested for? And Officer O'Brien said, he has rights too.
The gunman has rights.
The gunman has rights too. He was restrained and you hit him while he was restrained, and that's why you're going to jail. And I was like, he's never been restrained. He's not restrained.
How long were you in jail?
About 35 hours.
The guy who pulls the gun isn't the one who goes to jail that night. You
Exactly.
go to jail.
Exactly.
He isn't arrested till the next month.
No, and he's giving his gun back. They're going to see this when they run my plate, that I've been arrested before.
For a gun-related charge.
For a gun-related charge, right. And they're going to think in their head, oh, this guy just had a good lawyer. He got off it.
The media soon picked up on the story, with interviews providing contrasting perspectives on the incident. The police chief acknowledged that Solon had acted in self-defense initially, but claimed that he crossed the line in the subsequent actions taken against Cooper. This statement only added to Solon's frustration, as he believed he had done everything necessary to protect himself and others. Solon, in interviews, expressed his disbelief at the situation, particularly the way the police seemed to prioritize the gunman's rights over his own. "I asked over and over and over again, what am I being arrested for? And Officer O'Brien said, he has rights too, the gunman has rights too. The guy who pulls the gun isn't the one who goes to jail that night," as the interviewer tells, and Solon agrees. "You go to jail, exactly. He isn't arrested till next month." The experience left Solon deeply frustrated, especially when he learned that Cooper, the gunman, would eventually have his gun returned and would not face immediate consequences for his actions. In the end, the prosecutor dropped all accusations against Solon after recognizing that he had acted in self-defense. Nevertheless, the harm had already been caused. The event caused Solon to have a damaged reputation, emotional wounds, and a profound skepticism of the system he once trusted. However, sometimes officers get physical, and that's when things take a turn for the worse. It was a typical morning at the University of Utah Hospital. That is, until the Salt Lake City Police Department officers arrived on the scene like a tornado ready to stir up trouble.
So I printed this off. This is what I was told to print off. I have this. It says obtaining blood samples for police enforcement from patients suspected to be under the influence. Okay? This was something that...
They were on a mission to collect a blood sample from a victim involved in a horrific accident. The victim, who was minding their own business until a police chase ended in an explosive crash, was left in a coma, fighting for life. The officers, however, had a different fight in mind.
Patient consent or patient under arrest, and neither of those things. The patient can't consent. He told me repeatedly that he doesn't have a warrant, and the patient is not under arrest. So I'm just trying to do what I'm supposed to do. That's all. So
The officers, perhaps under the impression that hospital policy was a distant cousin to suggestion, waltzed into the hospital, eager to obtain the blood sample. The victim, who was completely unconscious, was obviously unable to consent, but that didn't seem to slow down the officers. What did throw a wrench in their plans was Nurse Alex Wubbles. Standing firm in her scrubs, she wasn't about to let the officers trample over hospital policy and, the law. Even though she explained to the officers what are the requisites of obtaining a blood sample for a patient who is unconscious, and that what they were requesting for was against hospital policies. As the clock ticked closer to chaos, Nurse Wubbles laid down the law, or at least read it to the officers. No warrant, no consent, no blood sample. A policy as clear as day. The officer, looking as pleased as a cat dunked in water, wasn't having it, and so the situation began to get out of control.
Oh, please.
No, we're done. No, we're done, sir.
Hey.
We're done, sir. I had administrative.
Seriously. Hey.
The discussion that followed was less a negotiation and more an exercise in futility. I printed this off, Nurse Wubbles explained, waving the hospital's policy document. But the officer was more interested in bending the rules than following them. Things escalated quickly. Detective Jeff Payne started physically harassing the nurse as he forcefully grabbed Nurse Wubbles outside, slammed her against the wall, and slapped on the cuffs. Why? Because she dared to uphold the law. A reasonable reaction if you are living in a parallel universe, even though the nurse can be heard saying, "You are hurting me."
Okay. The problem is this. Okay? You're telling me what your policy is, and I appreciate that you have a policy.
It's not my policy.
No, I know.
No, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm being told what to do and what I've been told.
And what I'm trying to tell you is, we wanted blood from this guy. Now, I have talked to people, and there's probably a much better solution that we could have come to, okay? But, all we had to do was the blood, okay? And my point is, there are civil, if we're breaking the law, if we're doing wrong, okay?
Just
listen to him. Listen to me. If we're doing wrong, there are civil remedies, okay? If we took this blood illegally, it all goes away, all right? So there's civil remedies if we make a mistake. What I'm telling you is, we are not making mistakes, okay? I've done this for 22 plus years. I know what the law is when it comes to search and seizure, all right? And what you have done, because your bosses are telling you to, has been to prevent this officer who's called out to do his job to do his job. That's obstructing justice, okay?
Meanwhile, his superior, Lieutenant James Tracy, arrived on the scene to pour more fuel on the fire, pressuring Nurse Wubbles as if intimidation was an official department policy. He tried to pressurize and manipulate her into giving the blood sample to them. After this not-so-subtle display of authoritarianism, the officers left, but not without leaving a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. The aftermath saw public outrage, a $500,000 settlement for Nurse Wubbles, and the unceremonious exit of Detective Payne from the force. Lieutenant Tracy, meanwhile, was demoted, finding himself patrolling the streets instead of directing them. In the end, even those sworn to uphold the law can forget what it really means. If you enjoy true crime content like this, make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss out on any upcoming videos.